You'll have to click OK, I think, at your end.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy, the owner of Inspire Hypnotherapy in Chermside, Brisbane. Today, I'm going to share with you and with Tony the WARP, or Walker Addiction Removal Process, which is used to help to balance the mind around compulsions and addictions, as well as control cravings. How are you going, Tony?
Oh, well, I'm good. Part of me was nervous coming into this as to, what's going to come up, but I'm happy to be in your hands, Jeremy.
Well, thanks for volunteering. And that's also something that happens is when we're excited about something, we're also nervous too. So that's always a good one to remember if we're looking to change an unhealthy habit or an addiction and there's some nervousness or worry. That's usually because there's some excitement there. Oh, I'm doing something positive for myself.
I definitely see it as a positive. I've been looking forward to it.
So a little bit of background on the WARP, or Walker Addiction Removal Process, and we'll get straight to the process today. Essentially, it's a question and answer process designed to balance the mind of misperception and also to clear cravings. So what that could look like, and to do a comparison, usually in the cycle of a relationship, there's the highs and euphoria and great sex right at the start. And then it tends to level out a bit. Things become more even or settled and realistic. And at the time of a breakup, it's more the opposite. Oh, that person's terrible. I don't want to see that person. And we put that person below what is true. Over time, we look back on people we've known in our lives and see them as, oh, they were good and bad, positive and negative. There was times when we growed together, times when I was overly challenged, and there's kind of an even mind. And the way the cycle of a relationship occurs also is the way the cycle of an addiction can occur as well. If we were to take alcohol as an example, wow, the first time I had alcohol, I partied and had fun and had all this amazing confidence and had a good time. Or for another person, they drank alcohol for the first time and it took all their pain away. So whether it be a relationship or a habit or an addiction, if it gives us very high pleasure, or takes our pain away, that can be an addictive thing. At the extremes, gaining a high amount of pleasure or euphoria, or gaining a lot or removing pain, it is very desirable. It can also happen at subtler levels as well. Oh, I'm anxious. I'm going to go and smoke a cigarette or watch porn or eat sugar. So it can be at the extremes, and there can also be some subtleties there as well. So I guess, Tony, before we did get underway, I know we chatted a little bit about your goal before coming on air. Did you have any questions or anything you did want to express before we do get underway?
Well, no, well, the reason for today is to address porn, which is a lingering thing for me. It kind of excuse the pun, it pops up from time to time. But it's something I've been hanging on to since I was like 13 years old. It was a huge problem. I'm now at a point in my life where I realize that it has been disastrous for 2 failed marriages because it was there in the background. 2.5 actually, I say, and it just rears its head from time to time, whether it's my partner and we don't see eye to eye, or it seems to be a very sophisticated form of procrastination. But now that I've found a bigger life purpose, the porn is all kind of gone a bit from the wayside, but there are times when I feel that I have to resist it. Sort of, you use that analogy of an alcoholic. I sort of feel sometimes like it's like I want that drink, but I know it's not good for me. That's kind of how I feel. So sometimes it'll be in my thoughts and I'm avoiding it.
Okay, yeah. And that's something we'll circle back on through this video as well, is that an unhealthy habit or an addiction will always cause the opposite of the desired result over time. If I overuse any habit to feel good or gain too much pleasure, it'll also cause an uncomfortable feeling or a difficult feeling at some point in life as well. But we'll circle back to that as we go through the process today.
Okay,
So
great.
I guess to check for yourself, Tony, we do have a look at what's most important to you in life. What would be those top 3 things that are most important to you? Whether it's
Health number 1. Yeah, health, happiness, and relationships, like close, deep, meaningful relationships.
Yes, yeah, great. And we'll use that within the process today.
Okay.
And I know you just mentioned a couple of triggers for porn coming back into your consciousness, whether that was acted upon or resisted. So at times when there might have been an argument with a partner, you've gone to watching porn in those situations. Any other triggers or that had led to turning to porn?
Uh, Originally, it was a box of magazines under my grandparents' house. That's kind of what started it. That was the fascination, and then
Okay, like it's fascinating. Yeah.
yeah, and my 12 or 13 at the time, and it didn't make sense in my brain as to why this woman was naked sitting in the cockpit of an airplane. That was I remember the actual pictures, and then it wasn't too long after that where like the internet, I was on the internet pretty early, and it was it was line by line the pictures would load, but now I didn't have to feel guilty or ashamed going to a shop to buy a magazine or anything like that, so it just became a whole lot more accessible. And then as internet speed and everything, and then it was just been in a job that wasn't aligned with me for 30 odd years. It was like a quick pleasure hit to I can only look back now and realize that I was just avoiding making some pretty hard decisions in my life.
Okay, so pleasure. I'll write these down as we go through.
Yep.
A time when you just avoid making a decision, and it was like a procrastinating, being able to avoid something.
Yeah, it was definitely avoidance. And the other thing that I liken it to, Jeremy, was the thrill of shoplifting, doing something, and that thrill of will I get caught, won't I, or will I get away with it? So that's kind of why it's always been a secret and why I've kept it from partners. It's kind of been my own little dirty, shameful, guilty secret
This is a
where
naughty thing that I can try and get away with, like the rebel.
yeah, and I thought that in sharing that with someone else, it would just make me look worse and would make me feel worse. But I did share openly in a very public in front of about 1,000 people, actually, at a landmark thing that I went to, and that that actually empowered me dramatically because now it was out, and that was all part of my healing process, and why it's not. It's like 95% not a problem now, but there's just this little every now and then it kind of just surfaces. I know it's not fully addressed with, but then at the same time, I know I've got some pretty powerful neurological pathways to porn because I've been doing it for such an extended period
18
of
years
time.
old. There's a number of years it's been part of life.
Yeah, part of life. Sometimes 2-3 hours a day, like ridiculous. Yeah. Yep.
And one thing we do have a look at with this process, which is the first question is around those triggers and what that positive intention or the thing you were looking for from it. What was the problem that porn was solving, or what you got out of doing it? We've
I
already gotten there was a pleasure, that
yeah.
thrill and excitement, also a way to avoid something or procrastinate. Any other things that had problems it was solving, or the payoff of watching?
Perhaps the idea, the fantasy of having more than one partner at a time, or just more than one partner. But no, I think it was just that quick. How do I feel good now? And I think that was
Quick,
the driving. Yeah, that was the
being
driving
quick as
one.
well.
How do I feel? How do I feel pleasure now?
And that's something that turns up with a lot of compulsions and addictions, as well as we want something to be instant. There's usually a fantasy aspect, like this is going to work. This is going to work for me.
Yep. 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 And then on the flip side, just completely beating myself up. Like there was a time when I was standing in a workshop welding bay with a welder in my hand, thinking about burning out the retinas of my eyes from overexposure to the welding. I was there with it in my hand, powered up, ready to go. And I couldn't go through with it because part of me realized that even if I couldn't see, I still had the mental images.
Yeah. There was a moment you wanted to burn the images out of the mind.
Yep. 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 So I'm after the welder Jeremy.
And also looking at the payoff from what you might have been getting from porn, physically, mentally, any other things there?
There was a time in my first marriage when we weren't intimate for about 9 months, and I was kind of just doing everything I could. Like I got out books on sex and sexuality in the library. I was reading it. And then part of watching porn was me justifying that it was kind of research. It was more research. So there's a part of me justifying why I was doing that. And
just before you do continue there, was learning about sex and sexuality something that was a genuine part of what was going on there? There's times you've watched porn and you've learned something about yourself or about women or about sex. Has that ever happened?
Learned different.
Because I know
I learned different positions, I guess.
Video watching, I've definitely learned a lot from porn.
Yeah, well, I've definitely learnt different positions. I guess I've learnt in a way the kind of look that I like and a look that I don't like. Wow, okay, that's interesting to think about. I've never considered the benefits of porn. It's always been a guilty, shameful, don't really want to admit that I'm doing it kind of perspective. I've never actually looked for the good in it.
And that's actually one of the purposes of this first question. What is the positive intention of porn? Because then it brings up the guilt back to something that has served a purpose at some point in life, rather than it always being bad. And it's guilt that the mind tends to go back to and tries to fix that with the addiction. So like if I was feeling really guilty about watching porn or my previous drug use, I would go back to it to try and resolve the guilt. So definitely part of this purpose is to come back to an even mind where, I don't want to feel terrible about this forever or think it's going to be a solution, but just to be said exactly as it is. It is what it is, but I don't need to be attached to it.
Well, I can certainly see how I manifested my ideal partner from spending a lot of time focused on that energy.
Okay, visualization process of your type of desired partner.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah. But any other payoffs from watching porn or the positive intention of watching it?
I got good at encrypting files, secretly storing things away technologically. I got good at covering up my tracks with search history and little things that are left around the kind of back doors of the computer file system.
Savvy with computing and files management.
Yeah, very much. Yes.
And later in life, when you were doing business and working, did you ever manage accounts and manage files and systems?
everything I was doing. Well, most of what I do is technology based. I'll find some way to utilize technology to make things more efficient. You know, what I can do with a push of a button, and it will then do 100 different things. I'm looking at a touch screen here that I've programmed. Each button does a different thing on screen. And I'm also looking at my green screen, not quite tuned in here.
Oh, yes, that eye for detail. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll kick in with the next question as well. And if any other benefits of porn do pop into mind, feel free to bring those up, and we'll come back to those again there as well.
Well, I do have another one, and that is that when I was in my teens, very early on in this journey, I always thought that being a photographer, if that was my job, being able to, not the video, I preferred the photos, but I always thought, wow, wouldn't that be the best job in the world, to photograph naked women? But it was more than that. I enjoyed because porn's a very big umbrella. I'm told that the kind of porn that I was into was just pretty like not on a, if there was a scale of really intense, hardcore, weird, crappy stuff, then I was like down the bottom. You know, I just liked an attractive women undressing slowly to music. That's the kind of stuff I was into. None of the freaky things. But for me, it was always about the camera and the composition, and it had to be good lighting, and it had to be tastefully done. So they were the other things that I got out of it, and then I actually later got into.
You say that's visually pleasing.
It was
also
visually
finer details, the lighting and the other elements.
Yeah, and so I ended up years later learning photography and teaching studio flash and lighting and all those things that I'd seen back there. Yeah.
And also for anyone listening who has a very high level of kinks and fetishes, no matter what that's relating to, there's plenty of benefits to those as well. No behavior in this sphere is right, wrong, good, bad, but simply serving a purpose for each person.
Yeah,
and
it's all about how it was affecting me. I knew that where I kind of sat on, but for me it was still a big problem. Yeah. It's more about.
We'll get to the downsides in a moment to balance out those positive intentions.
Okay.
But for the next question, we actually have a look at what you already do or have done to satisfy each of those smaller parts of the porn watching. And some of the things you'd mentioned there was, I wrote them down as we were chatting, a pleasure or a quick pleasure, avoid something, the thrill, the naughtiness or thrill of not getting caught, the fantasy of having more than one partner. You are learning things while watching porn, including photography. Does that sound like the porn habit for yourself? Quick, easy pleasure, procrastinate, the thrill, and you also learned some things along the way as well.
Yeah, very much. Yep. Nailed it.
Before that first one, for gaining pleasure in life, what are at least 3 ways you know how to gain pleasure now that are equal to or even more than porn watching?
Pleasure comes from being curious about kind of everything, just small things. If I want to focus on ants moving through the leaves of grass, to me that is a very satisfying thing. It's just noticing small things. Also, pleasure or emotions used to be a very intellectual thing for me, like a headspace. And so now I get pleasure from sitting with emotions and being with them and actually feeling them, not kind of skirting around the outside of intellectualizing that feeling. Meditation is something that I really, really enjoy, and it's a place I can go if I want to take a break from whatever's happening at the moment. And that's a daily practice for me that helps me like reset my equalizer that gets out of whack through the day. So that's a priority for me. That's the first three that come to mind. I could go on and
That
on,
also
actually.
fits in with what you mentioned before around health and happiness and relationships being part of your top priorities at the moment.
Yep. Yep.
And also, as porn watching included people, when, where, and with who have you gained pleasure with people? Whether that's conversation, visually, affection, what would be those ways you enjoy people?
Meeting new people is
And
something.
ideally equal to or greater than porn watching. So anytime where there's been pleasure with that, wow, that was equal to or even more than.
Meeting new people energizes me way more than pretty much anything. It's one of the things I love the most, actually. Deep conversations with people beyond just the superficial talk about the weather. I like to go deep and find out why they do what they do, and just get a feeling for beliefs. I find that but I just find people infinitely fascinating. Like when I was into photography, I would really enjoy just doing headshots of people on a plain white background, just trying to capture the essence of who that person was. So yeah, I get a lot of pleasure out of just meeting people and getting to know them.
Oh, great, yes. And for the next question in this process, the first one being the positive intention of the habit, and one of those was a quick pleasure. The alternatives that are equal to or more satisfying, it certainly sounds like people, the work you do, meditation, being present with feelings and presence with experiences like ants moving in nature. And for the third question, we have a look at when and where did porn cause the opposite of pleasure? So even though the intention was pleasure, when did porn cause a discomfort or a pain or opposite of pleasure?
Oh, so reveal. Well, one particular event would be when I revealed through writing out a letter and leaving it where my wife at the time could find it about my addiction, which she had no clue about. That was it was an awful time. It involved her throwing clothes washing detergent on me, which got into my eyes, and that stuff stings like crazy.
Pause just for a moment. That's the downside of your wife finding out,
Yeah.
or you revealing porn. But what's the downsides of the pain of the porn watching? So looking at the experience of being there trying to gain pleasure, either mentally or physically.
Okay, so the downside is energetically, I would feel depleted from an actual ejaculation. Like I knew that was energy passing out of my body, and that energy wasn't now there for me to use. Guilt would have to be the number one. I just felt guilty and ashamed for having something that had a bigger hold on me than I had on it. I really felt like it was in control.
Yes, I feel like it's in control, feeling guilty. Certainly.
I felt like an alcoholic. I couldn't resist the urge. It was that ingrained a habit, and that was a daily thing of, like at a certain time I'd be on my own, and that was the first trigger, and then I would watch the porn, and then after it I'd just feel bad that I did it again, and I didn't want to be doing it again.
And would have that happened many times, looking to gain the pleasure, but then there's also the guilty and the depleted feeling afterwards?
Yep.
And in using one of my own examples, I've certainly had many different types of habits and addictions. Sugar was my hardest one to get under control.
Mm-hmm.
I was using it and overusing it to give me an energy boost, but it ended up causing digestive problems, daily anxiety, going through chronic fatigue, sore joints and muscles. So it's always us trying to get something from a habit that it's not designed to do. The porn isn't designed to only provide pleasure and good feelings, it's always going to cause the opposite as well. A bit like a relationship, it's never designed to only give pleasure, it's going to challenge us and support us. So just to see it as the truth, which is, it definitely was causing an energy depletion and a guilty feeling alongside the pleasure as well.
Yep.
And for the next positive intention you mentioned, which was to avoid something or procrastination, what are 3 ways you found how to avoid something that's also on the healthy side, whether that's present moment or things you've done in the past? What are some healthy kind of procrastinations you've used?
Healthy. Okay, so healthy forms of procrastination.
Yeah, just putting something off or avoiding something that's more on the healthy side.
So, well, recently, well, I say recently, it's kind of an ongoing process for the last year or so of been learning and applying kinesiology. So sometimes when I don't feel like doing something, I'll muscle test myself as to whether it's the thing I should be doing. So I have post-it notes on the wall up here, which is what I'm looking at when I'm talking about this, because I will literally look at each post-it note, muscle test as to which one I should be working on. So procrastination.
Okay, if I can summarize what you said, like you've got a decision-making process now. Is this task really for me, or can I put that one off because I energetically don't want to do it?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Is this what I should be working on now? Like, what is the outcome that I want from now? That's
rather than doing something that doesn't match what you're about in that moment, you've got a system now to decide, I actually just don't need to do that thing.
Yes.
And I can do something more aligned or more productive.
Yep. Yeah, but I've also learned that if it's someone else imposing a job on me to do, that it's okay for me to speak up, and if I need to establish some healthy boundaries around that, where before I might have just kind of done it but not enjoyed the process because I didn't really want to do it. So I'm able to now just speak up what I'm feeling as well.
Oh, yes, so speaking up, using a boundary to avoid doing something. Yeah.
Yep.
And then we'd have a look at, on the opposite side, even if the intention of using porn in the past was to avoid something or avoid an argument, when has it given you something that you couldn't avoid, whether that was guilt or a marriage problem or something, even though you might have been avoiding something, when has it given you more to stress about?
It was just a constant stress that there was this part of me that I didn't like. I didn't like having a part of me that I didn't like. That was the stress. That's what's stressing me out. And the compulsion to do it that I didn't feel like I could curb, that was, it was like a part of me I couldn't control, and I didn't like that at all. I wanted to just be able to go, stop, I don't want to do this anymore. And I found myself doing it again. And so many times I tried to stop, quit. I might have a hard drive full of stuff, and in a moment I'd go, right, that's it, delete everything. And then in a matter of weeks, it's full again. And it was just that part of me that didn't, just guilty, just felt guilty and ashamed that what I was doing wasn't right, and if people found out, they wouldn't like me.
Yeah. Hey, I don't like this part of me, and other people probably aren't going to like me either.
Yep.
And that's something that's pretty classic with an addiction. It's trying to avoid something, but trying to avoid the unavoidables, which is the consequences of an action. Bit like if someone said, I've got this magnet here. If we said this was a magnet, got the positive side here, and I want this side to also be positive. That's what we hope an addiction does. Just give me the
Okay.
positive, get rid of the bad feeling, give me the good feeling. But we always get simultaneous. Every time I'd have a V energy drink to get my energy up, within a short time, oh, I'm flat again, and not clear minded, and feeling bad. What's wrong with me? So there'll always be that with any habit.
Mm. Avoid
Oh,
the
great.
unavoidable. I like that one, Jeremy. You can't avoid
And
the
for that
unavoidable.
next, oh, you go.
You can't avoid the unavoidable. I like that one. That's Jeremy's little quote for the day.
And for that next positive intention, you'd mentioned the thrill of looking at porn. What are the ways you get a thrill now from people or life or other things that are equal to or even better in thrill than the porn was?
What I do for a job now is thrilling. I get to inspire people all around the world and help reduce their pain. It is like the most thrilling thing in the world, and it's a job that I created from nothing, essentially, over a period of time. So that's what it's what I live for now. It's thrilling. What I do is thrilling. It's
You can see
thrilling.
there's the inspiration in your body language and your voice. And does that give you a feeling of massive depletion after doing that, or
No.
feeling out of control? Doesn't have that.
No, even if I have some really challenging chronic clients that are bedridden in an incredible amount of pain, I'm able to just hold space for myself and hold space for them, and be able to work with their body to decrease their pain. And they can be talking to me about all the despair going on in their life, and then next thing they're pain free, and they're jumping off. But we might start there here, and when we do some movements, their pain actually increases, but that doesn't rattle me, because I just know I've seen it before. I have enough examples to know that sometimes that's what happens with certain people. And then we bring it down, and then when at the end of the session, they're better off than when we started, and that just lights me up. Yeah, it's most amazing.
Knowledge, doing what you love, service to others gives more of a thrill and a satisfaction than porn did without the downsides.
Yeah. Oh, downsides.
Well, I mean, without those big
There's always
downsides of guilt or
no.
feeling terrible. And
No. The downsides is just things like, could I have done better?
which is taking personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Great. And then on the opposite side, what would you say is the opposite of a thrill? What would your opposite of the word thrill be?
Opposite of thrill would be boredom, if I had to define it.
Okay. And any times when porn was boring or just the same? When has it been the opposite of a thrill? When has it been a chore?
Oh, okay. So when I might have clicked onto something that was kink, or I didn't mean to, or it was just something that I completely wasn't into that repulsed me. Yeah, that.
Repulsed. Yeah.
Yeah. To click on things, and all of a sudden I'm looking at something that I didn't want to see. Yeah. Yep.
There's been times when you're looking for that very nice, well-lit and photographed image of a certain body shape or body type you like, and then something else comes on the screen, and there's like an anxiety there to get rid of it. Repulsed, get it away from me.
Yeah. Yep.
And any other times when it's given the opposite of a thrill, like that bad feeling or a boredom, or it's felt like a chore?
Yeah, there's, I can't remember any particular events, but I know there's been times when I've been watching and I've been like, this is boring, but why am I still doing it? that kind of thought
Like going through the
process.
motions, this is boring.
Yeah, I'm going through this is kind of just the same old, and yet I still found myself doing it. So yes, there's been times where it's been boring, uncomfortable, shocking. Yeah, yep.
And I'll check in sort of halfway through this process. At first, you had mentioned porn as being used for pleasure. Can you now see on the whole, it's given pleasure, but also given a lot of these other feelings as well?
Yeah,
Repulsion,
yeah.
shocking,
Yeah.
disgust,
Now,
energy depletion,
that you
guilt.
pointed out, yes, very much.
And again, we wouldn't say porn or any overused habit is good or bad, right or wrong. Just your own body feedback mechanism was saying, we're doing this too much. Here's some guilt, energy depletion, and repulsion to try and break the attachment to something not working.
Okay, I can see that. Nice, yes.
Just like me with alcohol before, sugar, drugs. I was trying to stay high, but I was ungrounded, scattered, and couldn't, wasn't having that balanced experience.
Yep.
And I'll check in for those last couple you'd mentioned there. Learning. What are the things you've been able to learn when not watching porn that are even more beneficial or enjoyable to learn than the porn was?
Tantric, making love with a real person. It beats porn any day. Yeah, not a digital, escapism or fantasy. It's real life, real body sensations, using all the senses, and that energy from the whole whole thing. So to me, the opposite of porn is love. So feeling that love. Yeah.
There's been times when you've had a body sensory experience with a person, also that love experience when doing it with an actual person.
Yep. Yeah.
And was that something missing almost all the time from the porn experience, the heart engagement and the being present?
Yeah, it was missing from my from partners that I've had over the years. It was lacking. Well, they weren't measuring up to my expectations of the porn, I guess. But then at the same time, I also was pretty naive myself in just knowledge of female anatomy and what I can and can't do for a woman pleasurable, and that has a lot to go with what's going on in their mind. There's just a whole lot of factors. But yes, I had partners that weren't measuring up to the fantasy that porn was providing as well.
Oh, yeah. And over the years, as you've learnt more about what you can experience with a woman sexually and intimacy and from that heart space, has that been something you've enjoyed learning about and putting into practice?
Yes, going deep with my partners. Been, it's life changing. Yeah.
And anything else you've enjoyed learning about whether it's business, self mastery, other aspects of life? What else have you enjoyed learning about that's been equal to or even better than learning from porn?
I enjoy learning just as a daily process. Pain is what I spend a big chunk of my day learning about, just new techniques, new therapies, new modalities. I'm a constant learner, and I've latched on to something that's giving me a lot of inspiration, and yeah, it's far exceeds anything that I was doing with porn. Yeah.
And one of the fantasies you had mentioned was from some of the porn watching was being able to be with more than one woman. Is that something that did end up happening in real life? Didn't end up happening?
It didn't happen as far as all like 2 or 3 women at once at the same time, which is a fantasy that was there, always still there. But I did have 3 separate women that I was dating at the same time. But I did it with integrity. They all knew that, like, they didn't go out for lunch together, but they all knew that there was 2 other women. So it was done with integrity. I'm like, if you want to see me, just understand that I'm also seeing 2 other people. And so that's how it played out for me.
Okay, and yeah, using the way that did play out, what were the downsides or the difficulties of being with more than one woman in the dating experience?
Oh, just the logistics. One was up the coast, one was down the coast, one was Brisbane. So it was like this night of the week I'm here, and then the next night I'm down there and over here.
Driving time, managing everything.
Just managing the time. Yeah. That was probably the biggest hassle. There was an incident where one of them thought they had a sexually transmitted disease, so then that had to be shared with all the partners. So that was a tense period of time while we were waiting on tests and things to come back. But it turned out to be a complete false alarm. But it was it was both kind of, that was like a double-edged sword. There was part of it where I really enjoyed just being in my integrity and going to all of them, look, this has happened. This is how it is, and we just need to do this for a period of time till we get these tests back, but I'm just letting you know now. And then there was kind of the flip side of how it just affected everyone. It's like, okay, we didn't realize this was a possibility, and it all just became very real all of a sudden.
Yeah, like there was times when there was just say just pleasure and enjoyment, and it was easy and fun, but then there was kind of the real world stuff too, managing time and expectations and possible STD alerts and this sort of stuff. It wasn't just pleasure, was it? There was both.
Yep.
And in going through the list of things you have mentioned, from that positive intention of doing it, from it being like a quick pleasure, avoiding something, the thrill, learning, being with more than one person, and then seeing all the alternatives for those things you've used over the years, from genuine relationships and love experience with people, the work you do, relieving pain, service to others, being present with nature, just kind of watching the world go by and these things. And then also seeing where porn caused the downside, everything from guilt, discomfort, energy depletion, feeling out of control, and these number of things. What do you think about porn, seeing that whole picture?
I can see how it's actually neutral. It's just what it is, and that I both got, I suppose, good and bad from it, or pleasure and not pleasure. And I can see that the whole way along, it was just my attitude towards it that was governing how I feel. It's just what it was. It was how I felt about myself while I was watching it.
And linking in with those couple of highest priorities you mentioned at the moment, one of those was your relationship or relationships. What's the benefit to your primary or intimate relationship of the moment of being porn free and using many of those alternative things for fulfillment that you mentioned?
It's just a deep love and a deep admiration for another person, for my life partner. It's just it's fulfilling. It's deeply fulfilling. Yeah. And taken sex, lovemaking to new levels because of the intimacy that we have just in our relationship and our understanding of each other, that we find new levels in our sexuality from getting to know each other just in that safe environment, knowing that it's just the two of us. There's no other external coming in. It's us and We're doing it together, going deep together and learning more about each other as we go.
Another area where learning can come in within a relationship. Certainly, I know there's never the end of learning, whether it's a partner, happiness, mastery, health. There's still lots to learn, isn't there? It's interesting too.
Yeah, there's always lots to learn. Just last week we had a moment where we were really out of sync. Things just weren't working, and we can't actually explain what happened. There wasn't significant events that were going on around us that were triggering things. We've actually kind of been through worse, but it was interesting because there was part of our kitchen that I made more organized, just that Tupperware drawer, the lids, and I came up with a solution to organize that. And it was funny, as I was organizing things there and cleaning out the garage, the physical space got organized, but our relationship got really disorganized and really frazzled at the same time. And it was just looking at each other and going, hey, right now things aren't quite right, but I'm with you and I'm committed to you, and this is going to pass. This is just a cycle. So let's just kind of hang on to each other, spend more time together, and we'll figure it out. And it seems like this week we're over that, and now we're on to like a new level.
Another great example of not avoiding a problem and running to an unhealthy habit. Hey, some perspective. This will pass. Being mutually supportive of each other, communication, also some other great ways in avoiding or dealing with stresses as well. Oh, there's an argument in the relationship. Oh, let's use our tools. We can talk about it, support each other. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, perspective's a good word, because in the past I would have just up and left. Started, go find another relationship. Yep.
Yeah. I often say, like, if you're feeling now, you're healing. But if someone is avoiding and resisting and everything's hopeless, they never get to the healing part, which is, okay, I've got to sit through this and get through it. And that's where the good stuff happens. Maybe like being here today, not totally comfortable, some nervousness at the start. That's because some energy is moving. So hopefully we've been able to give you some value today and perspective around the porn habit and living the life you do want to live.
Yeah, I think perspective is a really good word that sums today up with your insightful questions, Jeremy. It's got me thinking that it wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad. I was making it all bad, but there was actually good that come from it, and it all just leads to where I am right now.
Oh yeah, everything from your being able to encrypt files and being organized with technology to your photography, your learning, sexual experiences, it all served a purpose along the way, but perhaps was just being overused for a purpose it wasn't designed to do.
Yeah, overused, yes.
An okay way to see it.
Yeah.
So after going through all of that information, how do you think you'll be thinking about porn, or what's your thoughts about it going forward?
Going forward, I feel like the guilt has melted away, actually. And I don't actually feel like it's something that I need to erase or delete from my memory. Before we started recording, I said that's something that I think was an unrealistic expectation. And now I can see how that it's all just part of who I am and how I am now. And I don't actually want to delete a part that was and is me. And it's not necessary. I can look at it from a different perspective and just go, well, I didn't know what I know now.
Great. I'd say to sit with that, and guilt has melted away, in that place of self-acceptance, and to sit with that for a few minutes after today's video. And I really enjoy that feeling.
I will do.
And did you have any other questions for me before we do conclude the video in the next couple of minutes?
Well, is that my homework, Jeremy? Just to sit with that balanced feeling?
I would say, yeah, sit with that balanced feeling. You could always write down anything that comes to mind,
Mm-hmm.
or always feel free to ask me a question via phone or email as you like as well. Yeah,
Yep.
certainly just to be with what you experience. And if anything comes up, let me know. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. All
But
right.
as you are now, just to check in with the closing question, does that process feel complete? Is there anything that feels incomplete at the moment?
No, I feel a lightness. I feel like I actually feel like I've had a bit of a spring clean through just through the head here. There's a happiness in my heart. Well, it's beyond happiness. It's joy actually, and no, I'm satisfied. You get a 10 out of 10 for that, Jeremy.
Great, really happy you enjoyed that experience.
Yeah.
Anyone listening, you can find the Freedom from Addiction book, which does contain the walk process. You can find that on the Inspire Hypnotherapy website, as well as on Amazon and your online retailers. And I'd say again, Tony, thanks for being a volunteer today, and enjoy.
Thank you, Jeremy. I thank you, and I'll find other ways to thank you as well.
You're welcome.
All right, I'll stop that.